bring in our friend John Maakaron, covers of the Detroit Lions for Sports Illustrated. He is wearing a different colored hat today. He is not in a snowstorm. He's in his home, protected, ready to talk some ball. Joins us every single Wednesday, our good friend, Mr. John Maakaron. John, how we doing?
Fellas, how we doing? Man, I survived the snowstorm, man. It was crazy. The drive from Sterling Heights to my home in Macomb only took like 6 extra minutes. Luckily, man, for the last couple years, 4-wheel drive is a saving grace. You got to have it in this weather, man. My God.
Doc, it's usually an hour drive from downtown to where I live. It took me 3 hours today.
Oh, my God.
3 hours. I left at 5. I got here right on time on the show at 8:05.
I give you credit, man. Thankfully, I left at about 8 o'clock, and I just rolled in at 8:40. But I just saw, which is the natural case, the second I hit my car, the report came out about the Falcons OC, the former Rams guy, getting an opportunity. So we'll get that up here later or tomorrow. It doesn't matter to me, but it's interesting. It's a good time, man, to talk football, talk Pistons, talk good stuff, man. A lot of good stuff going on in Detroit sports.
Yeah, no doubt, Doc. We'll start, I guess, with the biggest news. Lions OC search. Okay, they're bringing in Zach Robinson, which, we'll get to that. But I really want to ask you about Mike McDaniel. Just with the competition, we talked about it this week. Half the league needs a new OC because you have head coaches. I think you have like a handful of head coaching jobs that opened. They're going to want their own OC, and then you have a handful of OC jobs. So about half the league needs a new OC, Doc. Does this worry you as someone who covers the Detroit Lions? They need an OC. The Eagles just opened up. They're obviously, what they're about. It's an intriguing job, Buck's job. With this Mike McDaniel stuff, are you getting a little more worried that it's getting more competitive, or you feel confident? Where are you at, Doc?
No, I just said on the Lone Wolves podcast, which is now, I'm trying to do it like you guys daily at 7. It's tough. But what I just said was, when you listen to Dan Campbell, you remember what he quipped in his final media session. He's like, maybe I'll call plays because maybe I don't have to then worry about the coach just leaving. I do think continuity is important. So I just think that Mike McDaniel, I just have a hard time right now. And you guys know me. I'm more on do we really get the cherry on top of anything we want? No. We want free agents. They say no. And we want trades. They say no. They try. So I just would think that Mike McDaniel comes from Miami and he steps foot here and he's freezing his nuts off. Is he going to really pick the Lions in this when he could stay in Tampa Bay, stay close and be the OC there, or he could go another opportunity? I just think that the more competition, it lessens your chances. I do think the Lions have a great selling point, but I just feel like it's always tough because I would love somebody to pick. Like the way it would go is he comes in and boom, he doesn't leave the building. Instead, we're seeing selfies and him at Delta. And I'm just like, it just has a feel of, he's like, if the way the Lions do it, they make everybody feel like they're just a guy. Like, how does he leave the building if he's your guy? You come in and say, listen, this is the guy. We want you, and put out stories that he's our first choice, only choice. But in the end, I do think that the Lions are looking for somebody that they can probably keep on the staff for a couple of years. That's why Robinson kind of makes sense, or Pete's, or somebody that is not going to be a head coaching candidate right away that can work with this offense and get some level of continuity. So unless the dream scenario happens, I'm more skeptical that it's going to end up being Mike McDaniel. I think there's too many opportunities that he could pick from, and he's going to have this pick of the litter.
Yeah, Doc, I do want to ask you, and we can keep talking OC, and we can get deeper into that. I just want to, something we just talked about now was the DC situation with Calvin Shepard. Do you think it's a lock that he's staying now, and do you think that's the right move for Dan Campbell to make moving forward into 2026?
Yeah, I do think he's staying. I think that if he would have made a decision, I don't think you're going to leave the guy lingering. You'd want him to have an opportunity to be able to interview, and especially, too, it looks good on his resume now that he gets to interview with the Miami Dolphins. But look, Dan Campbell groomed Calvin Shepard. He's a guy that's is a former player. He fits the mold of what the coach would want here, somebody that gets the respect of the players, that can grow with the group. And you look at it and you say, no matter how we view it, the fact of the matter is the defense, when healthy, was okay to start the year. They had a little stretch there, if you remember, at the beginning of the season, where they were able to kind of limit their opponents and do some things. Now it fell off with the injuries and as people kind of figured out what Calvin Shepard is about. But I think that Dan Campbell has a little bit of a sense of patience to be able to say, okay, there are factors that can be looked at as to why. I mean, you lost a lot of talent, and it definitely, no doubt about it. You said it. You were right before I hopped on. He's got to improve. He's got to look at that scheme. He's got to be able to adapt it on the fly. The defense has to play better. And I'm always of the opinion too, which I thought was another great question I had asked. I asked Calvin Shepard, do you think you need to make some drastic changes? And I kind of do. I think they have this approach with rushing that is too slow, this crush the can mentality, that good opponents can get the ball out quickly and move the football. And I thought it was telling that there was a drastic increase in the amount of explosive plays in the second half of the season. And of course, injuries are going to play a factor, but in the end, injuries, you can't really make an excuse no matter what, because it happens in football and you just are now looking down the road in the playoffs. The 49ers have way more injuries, more impactful injuries, and they're making plays and getting guys in to be able to help. So injuries are not an excuse. He has to get better. And I do think that it is a collective matter in regards to the defense. I think the scheme is not at the level where I think it can dominate better opponents. And that's just where it's at right now. I do think they got to take a look at what kind of cornerbacks they're bringing in. Brad Holmes, I don't even know if he knows how to evaluate a cornerback properly based on who's signed, drafted, and brought in here. So I just think that across the board, you're absolutely right. The defensive side of the football took a step backwards and was a big part of the reason why you regressed.
Yeah, I think the conversation comes along with the Brian Flores stuff. Like, Brian Flores was with the Vikings. Now he's interviewing for the Washington Commanders. Everyone's pissed off about it, or at least I'm pissed off. I can't speak for everybody else. But Doc, in this situation, it does not work out. How much of an indictment is that on Dan Campbell? I think that's one of those things I look at with the decision-making from a head coach. If you choose to keep a coordinator, you're banking essentially on it working out, of course, and you have faith in that coach. But if it does not work out, I don't think it'd be right if Dan's just like, yep, things happen. I think if people are going to be pissed off, it's like you wasted another year with a defensive coordinator that didn't have a great year to end the year, especially. And I know they had injuries, but I'm looking at Robert Saleh in the playoffs, which I want to ask you about. Like, Robert Saleh with the 49ers, I know they're not some elite unit, but look at the coaching job he's doing. I mean, half the teams in the playoffs right now, Doc, are top in scoring defense. The Lions defense was like 25th in scoring. I mean, if you want to have a chance at a Super Bowl, you see the recipe. You can look around. You don't have to coach in the NFL to know this. You can know it as a fan. Watch the playoffs. Good defenses, great quarterbacks, good offensive play callers. They're great complete teams. And then you have Josh Allen, who's a unicorn, and then you have other teams doing a better job coaching than others. But you get the point. Coaching is important, Doc. So how much of an indictment would it be on Dan if they keep Calvin and it backfires? His seat, in my opinion, his seat gets hotter. I'll say it. I'll just be honest with you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You're absolutely right. I think that we now can formulate a reason if this doesn't work out. It's they fell in love with their own guys, and the "we're good" philosophy permeates the entire building, that they believe their guys and their plan is the best plan. When you recognize that there's opportunities to maybe go outside the organization, it might even end up being this situation. You might end up hiring Zach Robinson because he's comfortable with Jared Goff, but the best candidate is Mike McDaniel by all accounts. And I just think that that's kind of where the Lions are at, where everybody kind of says, hey, you could go out and get a free agent. You could have, and it's not our job. And I said on the podcast, it's not Booner's job, your job, Hefe. It's not my job to give a list of names to Brad Holmes to go target and sign. But I'm of the opinion that if they would have made more aggressive moves in free agency to address center in a different spot, to address some weaknesses, then potentially all you did was basically make a lateral move for Carlton Davis with DJ Reed. And most people are going to argue that you made the team slightly worse by bringing in DJ Reed. So that's not how you go forward. That's the recipe for regression, is when you look at your own guys and say, yeah, that's good enough, when potentially there are better out there. And I think you don't think a coaching staff of Brian Flores, Mike McDaniel, and Dan Campbell might look a little bit better when you have some injuries? I would think so too. And I think everybody looks at it and says, yeah, Dan Campbell's big mistake this year, for the reason why 2025 failed, was he made a mistake choosing John Morton and Calvin Shepard. It cost you 2025. In a nutshell, you lost out on an opportunity to get to the playoffs this year because of your general manager and your head coach equally.
Yeah, Doug, I'm going to, again, jumping back and forth from DC to OC, offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, back to the offense. Question that Jeff and I were talking about before you hopped on. I brought it up to him and just, hey, when you do hire this new OC, whether it is Mike McDaniel or whoever they end up going with, even if it's a younger guy, what are your thoughts on how, that new OC approaches this job? Do you think that there's a chance that they try and significantly change what the scheme of the entire offense is, or do you think they try and stick with what's been working, add their twist to it? What do you think you kind of see here with this offense and a new coordinator heading into next season?
Yeah, no, I think you have the tenants, and part of the thing in my preview was when we spoke, I hold myself accountable. I didn't think the coordinators were going to be a narrative. I just thought that you had enough talent to be able to run your scheme. Boy, was I wrong. I was very wrong. I thought that you have all this talent on offense, and it was supposed to be able to handle it. But no, when you don't run the football effectively, that's what Dan Campbell, that's what he's supposed to. That was the tenet of this offense, was to be able to run the football. Well, if you don't have an offensive line and you choose Graham Glasgow, I mean, that's a big mistake. And guys, look, the writing was on the wall a little bit. You remember, all through training camp, you guys paid attention daily. I did a daily podcast at training camp. And I said, guys, a lot of times the Lions offense is not looking as good as the defense. It's a little bit shaky. Everyone's like, be patient. And then we all know what happened against the Packers, but they did rebound. But eventually, when the injuries started piling up to the offensive line and Taylor Decker's season went on, you just didn't do a good enough job. So they're going to go back to the drawing board. And I do think they're going to add more competition. They're not, listen, at the very least, I'm comfortable saying that the Lions are not going to draft projects. Everybody that they're going to draft is going to be able to compete. You're not going to be too confident that, we can draft a Giovanni Manu and he can sit for 3 years. We're not going to draft a Broderick Martin. He's not going to be on the team. We're not going to draft a Colby Sorsdahl or Sione Vaki, who's a special teamer. You realize, okay, we're going to draft guys to compete, to start on the offensive line, on the defensive line, at safety. And that's an upgrade in draft philosophy. And that's a step one. I do think that you're probably going to have to invest a little bit of money in the offensive line. That's an upgrade over last year. But this offense, the tenants are pretty good. Guys, there is talent on this offense. They did score. They were able to move the football. Some of the big issues were giving up too many pressures. Jared Goff got sacked the most in his career, which obviously is going to impact. He's not Superman. And you need to be more efficient. And also, too, the devil's in the details. When Dan Campbell took over play calling, the level of detail fell way off. More procedural penalties, key moments where you were getting into your drives, getting ahead of the sticks, then you fall behind the sticks because of an ill-timed penalty. And in the end, you got completely away from your offense, which is run the ball, which also, hey, if you run the ball, now you're goated around these parts. Quarterback Jared Goff can run some play action and he can look better and not have a turnover flurry machine happen. So I do think that clearly Dan Campbell is going to say, run the football. That's a tenet that lets you control the game, and then you can run some play action. And you do have some talent. I think Tesla is going to take a step forward. Gibbs is going to be a mega star. Now you just need the new knuckles to come in here and handle business.
I haven't really gotten to ask you directly, Doc, but all the guys they've interviewed, they got Zach Robinson, Jake Peets, Mike Kafka, Mike McDaniel, T. Martin from the Ravens. Do you have a kind of a list? I know Mike McDaniel is obviously the number one guy, but if Mike McDaniel gets hired or for be a head coach, who's next on your list of guys that you would be? Which way are you leaning with the guys they've interviewed?
Yeah, no, I like I said, I think the number one guy on the board clearly is McDaniel. That's the guy that they would like to see here because of his what he did with the run game. You saw in Miami that they had a center that became an all-pro, and he wasn't even that highly sought after. And you look at it and you say, okay, there's something there. Now, if it's not McDaniel, you go and you say, okay, I'm of the opinion that David Montgomery is not a lost cause. So I would say that if you just look at the opportunity, I think Zach Robinson's clearly going to wow a lot of people. 39 years old, somebody that has an opportunity to get after it. I also would say internal, there's a coach that I think that I wrote about at Lions on SI. I think Scotty Montgomery has all the tools to work with Dan Campbell and have an effective offense. And here's why. Isaac Tesla, who's the player that Dan Campbell said grew the most? Isaac Tesla. Who just came off of a breakout season when they told you he was going to have a breakout season? Jamison Williams. Who coached him up? That is Scotty Montgomery. And he's somebody that would obviously understand the run game, having been the running backs coach last year. I think that he's somebody that garners respect. He commands a room, and he's been a former head coach. He's kind of in that similar mold of a Ben Johnson in that he's got a lot of coaching experience, and I think would be able to work with Dan Campbell, maybe in the same sense where Dan could call plays and Scotty could also work with the unit as a whole to improve the offensive line, get the right balance to run. So I like Scotty Montgomery. I like the way he commands the room. I like the way St. Brown has talked about him and how he develops players. I like his mentality and the way he addresses questions. I think that he's somebody that's worthy. And also, too, he's also been the assistant head coach for the last 2 years. He's talking to the media every single week. So I like what he brings to the table. It's internal, and I don't think he's going to get a head coaching job for the next 5 years. And he can use this as a jumping point for his career. So I'm intrigued by Scotty Montgomery. I don't think Fraley or Mark Brunell has an opportunity. I don't think David Shaw has an opportunity internally, but externally, I don't think I tried to get some information if Brian Daboll, everyone's lips are sealed about Daboll. I do think a lot in the organization like Kafka because of what they saw against the Giants, but I do think that it's going to be real interesting. This interview with Zach Robinson, I do think is something that could potentially be something that produces the guy.
Hey, what do you think this offseason, Doc? What are you looking at over the next few weeks outside of coordinator hires and all of that? When you just look at roster standpoint, what are some things you're going to be looking at for them to address here coming into the combine is next month, and then free agency is going to be opening up here?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking for a complete overhaul of how they acquire roster talent. First of all, we now know that draft and develop gets you to a spot. It gets you relevant. It gets you to be okay. You can be a losing franchise, be irrelevant. You draft top of the heap. You get number 2 pick, number 7 pick. You move around, you move up a little bit. You're aggressive to get J-Mo and Gibbs. That can get you to the playoffs, but that is not going to round you out. You cannot neglect free agency. You have to hit, and they've tried, but they haven't hit. They need to have a strategy where they aggressively acquire these players that and Brett Holmes kind of, I want to use a better word, for lack of a better word, he talked around it in saying, well, I've tried. Well, okay, that's fine. I understand you're making the calls. Great. We know that you have a phone, maybe 2, and they work. But in the end, you have to acquire talent. The best teams win, and you don't win with just draft and develop. Okay? Simple. And I know the Slappies are a little bit gun shy and they don't want to spend and they don't want to give up draft capital and they don't want to mess with the cap and get all funky with the cap. But just look at what the Eagles did. If you just want to look at an organization, just when they were close, they built through the draft. Yes. But when it was time and it was money time, they went out and bucked the trend and paid a running back. They paid Saquon Barkley and it transformed the organization. The Packers did the same thing. Now, he ended up getting injured, but Micah Parsons was a big reason why that football team beat you twice. So you're telling me that you can't find listen, for lack of a better acronym, the Lions need a free agent guru to be able to find out who can ball, who can go out there and come in here that's not injury prone and help this team out. And then you got to do the same thing in the draft where you got to find talent and hit the players that are going to contribute and compete. And once they do that, guys, I do think that once they realize, oh, wow, our strategy was okay, B+ strategy. But to win a Super Bowl, you need an A+ type of a couple off seasons to be able to compete because the Rams and the Eagles, they're just going to keep retooling, and teams that are now catching up to you have potential long-term success, like the Patriots, who are in year 1. Remember, you guys just naturally think that Caleb Williams is going to get worse with Ben Johnson. Guys, you now have unleashed a competitor. You have completely given up all your secrets to another franchise, and he's actually running your playbook at this point the same way that you did. Ben Johnson calling out the Packers is the equivalent of Dan Campbell's kneecap speech. And I think that if Dan Campbell can get a little bit of that spark back, now you have an opportunity, because if we get the grumpy Sean Payton guy, that's going to be a little tough. But hopefully we don't get correction Dan Campbell. Hopefully we get kneecaps guy back in the coming years.
I wanted to ask you, Doc, because this would be a perfect thing for you. I saw Lions Twitter went crazy because Aiden Hutchinson went on TV and talked about the injuries. Yeah, there you go. What do you? Because we were on Twitter kind of, and you actually backed me up on some of it. And, people were on my ass because I tweeted out, and I explained it earlier, what I took from the NFL playoffs, coaching. And I think injuries, of course, play a factor, but I think coaching, people, I think, misunderstood what I was trying to say. It's not that if you lose your whole roster, you could still win a Super Bowl. What I meant by that is the Lions still had 2 All-Pros on defense playing football all year. You saw Jack Campbell and Hutchinson, and they weren't able to get it done, or at least be a much better unit. Where are you at with the injury stuff, Doc? Like Aiden Hutchinson goes on TV and he's like, if we just got to get healthy, it's like, where are you at with the defense here? Is Hutch far off? Is it just getting healthy?
Now, listen, this might be now exposing my age, but listen, I understood the gripes of some fans saying, look, the players are a little more distracted. They're doing podcasts, a lot more commercials. They're, listen, I don't care about all that. But one thing I don't want to see, the players on TV when the playoffs are on. Sit at home, watch the games, enjoy family time. I don't want to see you talking about football, period, point blank. It's just a manifestation of anger that you're not there and telling people, well, yeah, we just, we didn't play complimentary football. Listen, I know that you're talking in generalities, but a lot of people here in Detroit know football at a deep, deep level, and most of the fans are into it. Like Detroit has a knowledgeable fan base that wants to win. They don't want to see their best players suited and booted, talking football and talking nonsense. That nobody liked that. And in the end, it wasn't excuses. The reason why the Lions defense struggled was the scheme didn't adapt quickly enough to the adjustments that were made by the opponents. It was pretty clear that all you had to do was try to get Jared Goff off his spot, bring a little bit of pressure, and it was going to disrupt everything. And they tried to make the Lions one-dimensional. And the good teams took away. Wow, really? I don't need a bunch of stats and a bunch of next-gen stats to tell you that the Lions went 0-7 when they rushed for less than 100 yards. Boom. You lost the battle in the trenches. And your defensive line wasn't good enough. Your offensive line wasn't good enough to support your football team. It wasn't the injuries. No, you had some good players there. Avonte Maddox is a player that I want back. I thought that he did an admirable job, and he was part of the reason why the Bears win was a success. I think that the scheme is not good enough. The defensive pass rush plan is not elite. It's not. Listen, I could tell you, wow, Al-Quadin Muhammad had 11.5 sacks, but he did it in 7 games. I shared on X that there were 8 games in the middle of the season that went win-loss, 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 win-loss. When you needed to stack wins, Aiden only had 3.5 sacks over a course of 8 games. Okay, so and you also got to remember, again, I'm not being an alarmist, but you also played a whack-ass schedule this year and finished 9-8. You played the Redskins / Commanders. You played the Giants. You played the Bengals. You played some bad teams. And you played the guys. Unfortunately, I know they ended up in the playoffs, but the Steelers were an atrocious football team, and you could barely beat them. So in the end, they got to take a serious look. And listen, they're not going to go on TV and be like, our rush plan's not good enough. Our young rookie, got outplayed by a free agent. They're not going to say those things. But we all know the average person who watches football, turns on the clicker that's not a slappy and using a bunch of numbers to try to tell themselves lies, understands that the defensive scheme was not good enough in regards to when they tried to mix it in some zone. There was miscommunications galore. They tried to run man coverage, but couldn't do it. They didn't have the horses to do it. So you got a lot of work to do to get back to that level. So nobody wants to hear what Aiden Hutchinson is saying about the injuries. When the smart football fans take a look at what's going on, they know what the deal is. And so I didn't need to see that. It didn't do nothing for me.
Doug, I also do want to ask you here, talking about the offseason and especially to the injured players, all that. There's a handful of guys. We actually spoke to Corey about this the other day. There's a handful of guys at free agency. Their contracts are up. Obviously, you mentioned AQM there. Alex Anzalone is probably the biggest one that I think a lot of fans are sitting there wondering what's going to happen. With these guys that are heading into free agency, which guys you want to see the Lions bring back, and who are you okay with them kind of moving on from? And kind of, hey, too much money, we're good. We'll go find someone else that's better for cheaper.
Absolutely. Great topic. A lot of great radio hosts have been kind of looking at that too. A Midland radio host, real good, did a tier ranking. He did about, 10 free agents, and he put Roy Lopez at the top as a priority. I do think Roy Lopez earned an opportunity. He's going to get a raise. And I think that he's a great role player and also showcase what you're about. He was the best. Listen, it's a good signing, but you can't have your best free agent signing be Roy Lopez. So Roy Lopez, I want to come back. I do want Amik Robertson to come back, but not to play on the outside. I think he needs to be in the mix to play nickel, because guess what? Him or Ennis Rakestraw has to compete for that nickel spot, because you're not going to have Brian Branch. So I don't think that clearly, you understand that Amik Robertson is not going to week to week battle the best wide receivers on the outside. But at nickel, I think that if you get him for just a little bit more money, get him in that $5.5 million range, 2 years, $11 million, that's good. I also like Rocky Sin and Avonte Maddox. I think they had a good run. They made plays. Guys I don't want back, Khalif Raymond, I think aged out. I'm sorry. He's good, but you can use Sailors and Tom Kennedy cheaper. I don't want Levi Onwuzurike, Josh Pascal back. I would make an offer to Al-Quadin Muhammad. 11.5 sacks is 11.5 sacks, but you need to get others as well. I would even pay the $8 million. If you can get him for $8 million, $9 million, I'd pay it. You reward your guys and say, hey, you come back here and do it again. But you also need to invest in twitchier, faster guys. You can't be 30th in time to pressure. You just can't be. It's not an irrelevant stat that some people just want to dismiss, because it's just common sense football. If you're slow to get to the quarterback, even a guy like Aaron Rodgers will pick you apart. And guess what? That's what he did. You didn't get to him fast enough. Guys like Matthew Stafford, who get the ball out quickly, will, in essence, the Lions used an excuse and said the quarterback got the ball out quickly. Well, too bad, so sad. You got to get faster pass rushers. You just can't have the same big lumbering dude all the time. It can't be Levi, Josh, and Marcus Davenport. Get somebody, guys. I know I said on the podcast and I exaggerated, but I'm going to say it again. Did you know that you can get pressure up the interior in 2.5 seconds or less? What? Did you see Milton Williams? Did you see Milton Williams go up the middle and get interior pressure? I know it's hard to see with the Lions, but wow, you can get interior pressure. I do think that replace DJ Reader with somebody a little faster, more athletic, and that can complement Tyleik Williams. So let's go. And we all see it. It's not, we're good. No, we're not good. The fans told you weren't good. The doc told you weren't good. And everybody that saw it said, yeah, you told us, well, I want to get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 defensive ends. Well, yeah, doc's going to tell you need 6, 7, 8, 9 defensive ends. Get as many talented players as possible. Stop trying and start finding players that can sack the quarterback and in more consistent ways.
By the way, I saw this question come up from the chat. It's a great question. It says, Doc, what do you know about potential to hire someone from the squads that are still in the dance? Any interest in getting on an assistant from teams like LA, Seattle, or San Francisco? How long do you think? What's like a respectable timeline that the Lions could hire their OC, Doc? Because I would assume you have to wait for that coaches to be hired, and then after that you'd find out who your OC is. Correct?
Yeah, correct. You got to kind of wait and see how the staffs are going to be rounded out. I think that's always great for some positions, but I do think that, the Lions, I clearly by the combine, they had John Morton in place. So I do think that it's going to take time. You do want to see how all these teams shake out, because at the same token, a lot of these guys have relationships with a lot of these coaches. And if an assistant from LA or Seattle gets an opportunity, they typically will start pilfering their own and things like that. So that might limit those opportunities, but you got to wait. So that's the balance, right? It's a tough balance. And that's why it was tough when you only have so many days to be able to interview. That's why it was kind of tough when Ben Johnson was doing his thing, even though the Lions were in the postseason. I haven't heard too much about interest. Obviously, most people were starting to talk about Zach Robinson because obviously the tie to Jared Goff. But outside of that, the Lions do a good job, man. Nobody talks a whole heck of a lot about the candidates. We don't know when they interview, other than a couple reports nationally. It's good. I get it. They want to have a thorough process and do a due diligence. And I think it's good. I think that the Lions want to get a lot of information, and I think it's really great to get the likes of Kafka in here, Pete's from Seattle, and that those are the top of the heap. So to get those opportunities, I want to hear, I kind of want to hear that Davis Webb gets an opportunity, at least from Denver, because that's somewhere where Dan Campbell came from. So I'm hoping that maybe defensively as well, you get an opportunity there, or from the Patriots or a team that has a good defense to see about some assistance. But here's the thing, continuity is king. And I'm a little bit surprised. I thought maybe some more coaches on that staff on the Lions assistant wise might face some consequences there for that season, but maybe not, maybe more continuity.
Hey, Doc, what are your thoughts on Sheila Hamp put out a letter, owner to fans? What were your thoughts on that letter there? Did you like kind of the message that she put across towards the fans? Like, hey, we're not going to make any major changes, but we are still, we're pushing for a championship this next year.
I'm more of, naturally, listen, and to your point, Booner, you made a funny point. I'm actually, to be honest, very happy that the media portion of my job ended this week. All of a sudden, we're now in a new era where some fans want me to tell Dan Campbell to keep his head up, or to tell Sheila, good job, Sheila. You had 36 wins over 3 years. Keep it going, pal. And I'm like, I don't think that's going to be me. But maybe that's that's the next step in my evolution.
What, Doc? You're not a keep your head up kind of guy? No.
I'm gonna be. I think. Do I have to keep you guys liking me? Do I gotta be a what up, Doe one pride guy? It won't be me going viral for something like that. But the funny part was when I asked Dan Campbell, and I'm very blessed. I got lucky when I asked him that, and the media got mad. Yeah, there was some noise, but at the same token, the blessing was. It was balanced out with the fans that know who I am and know what I'm about. And in the end, in Detroit, I'm very thankful that there is a significant portion of the fans that want some accountability. All I heard for a good 8 days on like 10 broadcasts was, John, you are the guy that we know will ask Brad Holmes these questions, ask him this. And I'm very thankful that the noise is always going to be loud for the slappies, but that's fine. And they're going to come out and they're going to say, and I think you guys experienced it too. They're going to say, they're going to quote tweet you, and they're going to say, go get this guy. Go get him. He asked Dan Campbell a tough question. He deserves to have his media credentials yanked. And I go, guys, all you're doing is exposing me to your audience. And out of every 10 haters, 2 or 3 are going to be like, you know what? That guy's kind of interesting. He's kind of a nice guy. He's around. He's accessible. And so all they did when they did that was actually wink, wink. Thank you. All they did was actually expose more people to me. So I'm thankful that there is a certain level of support for, hey, John, we respect you. Ask these tough questions. And I think that ownership should stay. Like, these aren't really that tough questions. What's your strategy, guys? And even the whole competitive balance. Like, in the end, no shit. Everybody knows the Lions are looking for a center. It's not that difficult to understand. Now, is it in the draft or free agency? Okay, I get it. They want to keep it secret. But in the end, everybody knows everything. Today, you guys saw it. Dan Campbell is in that building at 3:30 on short weeks. He's sleeping there. So an opponent could tell him what is going on word by word, play by play. They still got to go out and execute. So all this secret, guys, by the end, probably by the time you guys hit my age, there's going to be full disclosure where everybody can come in. They'll let fans into practice. They'll be like, hey, for a $2,000 package, you can come watch practice and call a couple plays. It's not that intense other than, okay, hey, don't tell the name of the guy you're targeting. But most teams know to a T what every team needs and what every team wants. So I'm always of the opinion that Sheila should every year, twice a year, at the trade deadline and at the end of the season, talk to the people. We're not that bad. Listen, the doc going, Sheila, the last couple of years, the team has regressed. Are you concerned? Are you going to have more urgency with Brad and Dan to tell them to keep it moving? And it's not that big of a tough question to be direct with somebody. This is football. This is not world hunger. I'm not asking her to put more money in my pocket. I'm not asking her for a job. I'm just asking her, why aren't you winning? And I think that letters that are crafted by probably somebody else and edited is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to have a direct conversation with the owner of the football team. And I always respect that a little bit more than some letter thrown to the fans that pay you.
Yeah, that's fair. I saw Mike Valenti went off about it. He was pissed. To me, it's like the Sheila thing doesn't really do anything for me, Doc. I mean, we're at the point right now with this regime where I just want to see results. I'm sick of, sometimes we're overanalyzing things. In my opinion, we're probably either overreacting or some people aren't. They don't want to admit that there's actual problems. There's probably two massive differences with the sides here with Lions fan base. But I will say this, and I do want to ask you because people have some questions. Could you see the Lions being a little more aggressive? Easy does it asks. I could see the Lions trading a future first or second to get better now. Do you think the Lions will finally be a team that makes an aggressive move? Do you think that's in Brad Holmes' DNA, or do you kind of foresee a similar approach where they don't give up draft capital? Unless they absolutely want, like Carlton Davis was like a 3rd-round pick. But do you see the team being a little more aggressive moving forward? Do you think Brad stays the same? Because he kind of hinted at staying the same relatively.
Yeah, I think it'll be the same strategy. I think that in the draft, Brad's going to move. I think this is the year where at 17 you move down, maybe get into 20 and get that 3rd-round pick back. And you have right now 7 picks. You're going to get, if you read on Lions NSI, you're going to get a 6th-round projected compensatory pick. So you're going to have 8 picks. I think, in an article that did very well for myself as well, one of my headlines was Brad Holmes stopped cooking. Amongst the rest of the league, the last 2 years, the Lions have picked the least, meaning that they haven't taken a swing, because I know the roster is good, but you need more draft picks. So absolutely that strategy is going to change. And clearly they know. I mean, it's pretty clear. You're not going to draft projects anymore. Every pick needs to be somebody to compete. And Dan Campbell said it. We need more competition. So what ended up happening is pretty clear. You had a good roster and you felt comfortable going into this year with it. Well, it all fell apart. You didn't grow enough. You didn't compete enough. You weren't gritty enough. And the league caught up to you and bypassed you just that fast. That's how it is. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. So that's what happened with the strategy and the coaching. You can go from 15-2 to 9-8 pretty fast in this league. And that's how the league is intended. That's why everybody universally understands that's listening in the chat. It's easier to go from irrelevant to a playoff team. If you're halfway decent at your job, you can watch film and pick players and pick coaches. The hardest step, which is why you get criticized the most, the hardest step is to go from where they were as a playoff team to being great. Guys, please tell me, and I don't want to start opening this can of worms, but please tell me that Dan Campbell is not going to become Mike Tomlin, where he has a winning record every year but never wins anything. Like, I cannot bro, if they go 17 years of this and I'm 63 and Dan Campbell's still coaching without a Super Bowl, forget it. You'll just have me scream for 2 hours every single week, because that's not acceptable. This is a championship mentality. And this fan base doesn't care about sustained success as a whole. Yes, some slappies that are online that want to talk and want, the keep your head up crowd. It's very popular. It's very easy to be positive and jovial all the time. Well, we'll get them next time, people. And some of these people eventually are going to come into that meeting room and they're going to tell them, MCDC, way to go, pal. You are the man. And they're going to do that. But in the end, I'm all about one thing. What is the meter? How close is this franchise to the Super Bowl? And when you go backwards, it makes me a lot more salty, period. Real salty.
By the way, before we, I'm going to ask you about the playoffs, Doc. I want to bring up this question here. I didn't say that. Appreciate it. He says, Jeff, can I please get a FA drop? I got you there. He said, not feeling this offseason at all. There's so much to do. Why, Lord? Why us? Why do you want us to suffer? Hashtag McDonald. Okay. McDonald's. Here we go with the McDonald's stuff. I'll ask you, Doc, before we move on to appreciate the $5. Before we move on to mailbag, we have some questions. By the way, drop your questions for the Doc in the chat. We'll put them up for him. I want to get your thoughts on the playoffs. Bears took down the Packers. You kind of talked about it earlier, but just in general, you have Rams, Bears kind of going on this weekend. You got Seattle, 49ers. You have some great matchups in the NFC. We could talk about the AFC as well, but what have you kind of made of the playoffs so far?
Yeah, no doubt. Real fast to your favorite commenter, Maz Carpetbag. Bro, I got as many Super Bowl rings as the Lions do, so they would be fired up and they wouldn't be regressing in that sense, because in that sense, I'm probably like Dan Campbell. I wouldn't sleep. I just would be like, you know what? I want to win. I mean, didn't it get everybody more like super charged up when they got to the NFC Championship game? 2024 should have been really, man, that's just devastating. All those injuries. I just think that this organization too safe. And it's clear They're too safe. And that's why. Listen, in the end, Brad Holmes now owes you 2 Super Bowls. This 25, 23, 24, 25 do not get erased from the record. They regress, bro. I'm sorry. They regress, and the whole world knows it. And it's the way it is. And unfortunately, they got some work to do. And guess what, guys? They're going to change. They're going to change, which is great. They're going to change. And here's what the Slappies do, which is crazy, is they start looking at all the teams that lose in the playoffs and go, oh, look what they did. And see, we shouldn't have did that. No, I'm looking at the winners. Well, guess what? I did some math. I did some research. Here are the numbers. 12 out of 14 teams that earned a spot in the playoffs, which would be 86.2%, have a quarterback that's athletic. So that would be a start, is you need a quarterback that can extend plays. Did you notice how some of those? Did you notice that Caleb Williams on 4th and 8 had 2 feet off the ground and slinged it into a receiver's arms? Holy cow. Now he's got the ability to be a guy that can lead comebacks. Wow. You looked at some of the games and they were really enticing. I thought the Jaguars had a chance to do some things, but they came up short. Look out for them. I think they're doing the right things. It's now or never for the Bills. I'm excited. And for Maz, who seems like a slappy and seems like he's going to go into the media room, join me. And listen, if there is one, just still be my friend, because we can actually have some fun conversations in the room. And I'll be like, I'll tell you, like, hey, are you going to tell, like, I'll tell some of the guys, hey, you're going to, which one of you guys, I think we all know in this realm who the person is that's going to tell Dan to keep his head up. We all know who that person is, or those.
I'll do it.
Yeah. Booner might do it.
You told the people, you did tell, can I tell the people what you texted me or no? Is that?
What? I already forgot what I texted you. What did I text you?
You gave me a price.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah.
Doc said he's going to give me $1,000.
Yeah. I told Booner.
If I had to do what that reporter did to Liam Cohen, he said he'll give me $1,000. Right. And Doc, I'm telling you what, the first time if I'm ever in a room or any type of press, 100%. I don't care. Take my credential, like, dude. Me and Jeff, we both are on the page. Like, we don't care if we have the credentials. Like, I'll be like, Dan, don't listen to any of the haters. You are the man. Like, and it'll go viral, and it'll be one of the. Honestly, it'll probably be the most viral moment out of that media room of the year. Right. Look at what just happened in Jacksonville. That's like the biggest viral moment of the year. Right. I would gladly do that.
It's sweet. Now, for that, Slappy, let me give you another example of how you can build a team. Did you turn on your goddamn television and watch the Patriots? They spent $100 million in free agency. Carlton Davis, Milton Williams, Harold Landry. They bought a team. 14-3 with a legendary coach, and they changed it just like that. Just like that. It can happen. I thought the Patriots need to go 3-13, 8-9. They need to wait 5 years. Come on, guys. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and they're better than you now, from now until the future. Come on, guys. You don't have to be in love with everything your team does. It's all in the name of winning. And they spent galore. They took one of your cornerbacks. They drafted better than you. They have a better quarterback than you. They got a better running back than you. They got a better tight end than you. And they were able to do it just like that because Mike Vrabel's the man. He's a winner. He's a proven winner. So I'm not saying that that's what the Lions need to do, but they need to kind of put a little nitrous in the car. Like the Lions got the nice ride. They're about to do the street race with the people, but they're not putting the nitrous in the damn car. Put the nitrous in the car. You're not going to win a race on 8 Mile in Detroit at 4 a.m. with no nitrous. I'm sorry. Put some nitrous in your ass and let's go. Add some talent. Let these people see some good. It's all we're asking for is just you don't have to use a full tank. You don't have to use a full tank of nitrous, but go put some nitrous in your car so we can speed up a little bit. Come on, man. Like, I feel like the Lions could have won a Super Bowl in this 5-year window if they just would have taken a different approach.
Wow. Put some nitrous in your ass.
Let's go. What are you waiting for? Nobody's waiting. Like, after 18 years of winning football, Mike Tomlin never had a losing season, and they were chanting fire him, and they were screaming for the last 4 years to get rid of him. It's not for long. I know some slappies will say Dan's the best coach of all time, but in the end, coaches know they're hired to be fired. It's a winning business. And winning is not getting to the playoffs, not going 9-8 and being happy. It's get this team to win a Super Bowl. That's the goal. That's the only goal. And I'm glad that Brad Holmes said that he's not sleeping great at night until he gets it. Well, sleep a lot less and get this team a Super Bowl.
Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, officialctsports.com.